Hello friends, it's Nancy from Astrology and Angel Mediums, and today I have another weekly check-in reading for the week of Sunday, May 31st through June 6th, which would be Saturday. I cannot believe May is already over. I have been so busy. I didn't even get a chance to properly celebrate my birthday. I'm still in this I didn't really get to go do anything I wanted. I didn't really get to see anybody. I've been so busy with other things happening that I have just been a little bit out of it. And I've had a bunch of stuff going on with my health. So it's been an interesting time for sure. So we're not doing jumpers today. All right. Let's see. All right. So let's see what we have in store for this week. Let's see what we have in store for this week. What do we need to know as a collective? We have the Six of Swords reversed. All right, what do we need to do as a collective this week? We have the Seven of Cups reversed. All right, what do we need to release as a collective? The Queen of Pentacles reversed. And then finally, what do we need to contemplate? I was like, what was it? Contemplate. We have the Hierophant reversed. Do we want these reversed today? Let me do a little check and make sure. Actually, none of them reversed. So, okay, I also want to pull a Moonology message as on Sunday, today, we'll actually have a full moon in Sagittarius. I'll be using my handy dandy Moonology messages deck. Let's kind of see. Boundaries, and then I do want to pull an elemental empath card as well. So let's get into that too. We have mindset. All right, I think we're ready. So let's get into the reading for this week. So the very first card is going to be what we need to know. This week we have the Six of Swords, which to me is one of these cards that, while yes, it does talk about the mental kind of element of swords, the mind, our thoughts, our sense of empowerment, our truth, the words that we're using, the Six is one of these cards that I have like a deep connection to in a lot of different ways. And so I feel like it's a card that really reminds us that maybe the best thing is to collect ourselves enough to kind of transition, to kind of start looking at what comes next, and to maybe not always feel so rooted and stuck in our situation that we don't really give ourselves options to do something else and to maybe explore different options. When I think of the Six of Swords, I think it's a card that really is asking us to, maybe even look at what sort of healing needs to start here. What can we do in order to empower ourselves enough to kind of walk away or choose to kind of move in a different direction from what we've been doing? Now, I know for many of us, like we're, trying to like build a life out or do certain things or focus on certain things. And we may feel like we've invested so much of ourselves in a particular area of our life, or maybe even just like I've been trying to build a life where I'm at. And I think with this week, it's kind of saying like maybe what we need to know is that we need to be kind of receptive to the possibility that there may be some transitions or maybe some changes that we need to consider that may be a better option for us in the long term. As you can see the figure here, she's in her boat, like she's, you know, kind of like rowing away basically from everything that she's known. She's not loaded down, she's not taking things with her. So I think if we think of if we take the time out to kind of consider what is it that maybe we've been carrying and trying to kind of make fit in this particular situation or in our current circumstances, maybe a lot of these things are just not going to be beneficial. They're not going to be in alignment. And so I think that this week we have to take into consideration, what sort of things do we need to kind of choose to walk away from? What sort of things do we need to say, like, you know what, enough is enough. It's not really for me. I need to do something else. I need to do something different. So it may feel like a week of us really taking some time out to look at, you know, what are we doing? What do we want? You know, what sort of things are we ready to kind of like, again, kind of transition away from? What sort of things have we been carrying that maybe don't make sense for the situation that we're in? How can we truly empower ourselves by choosing to do something different, by challenging how we view and perceive and think about certain things? Now, for what we need to do, we have the Seven of Cups, which is a card of like daydreams, illusions, choices. When I think of the Seven of Cups, as much as it looks like, oh, I'm being offered all of these different things, I have all of this opportunity, not everything that is presented to us is going to be to our benefit, right? And so we have to be very aware of what is it that we're going to choose, not just for ourselves, but also for what it is that we want. So with this being what we need to do, I think that this week is kind of saying like, hey, you got to make a choice. You have to stop deluding yourself. You need to stop being so inactive in what it is that you have kind of available to you. This is not going to be a time to be kind of passive. Cups are our emotions, our feelings, our connections in the sense of our relationships, our intuition, our, you know, our sense of how we feel into this world. And maybe right now we're being given a lot of opportunities to kind of reconsider what is kind of ahead for us. Like, what do we have going on? Now, I know for a lot of people at the current moment, many people are kind of looking at what they need to do, what they can change. Maybe a lot of us are kind of reconsidering, like, you know, am I going to remain where I'm at? Am I going to remain doing what I've been doing? So I think if anything, this week is going to kind of say like, all right, this is go time. You've already been doing all the thinking and considering and this and that, but like, this is your time. You have to make a choice. And again, not everything that is being offered up is going to feel like something that is beneficial or something that is going to really elevate you to where you want to be or allow you to make some of the transitions and changes that you would like. I do like the representation of the Seven of Cups in this deck because instead of it having like all of the different figures where there's like a serpent and, you know, like a key and like things like that, this is kind of showing you like all of the planetary glyphs out of astrology. So we have like the moon, we have Mercury, we have Venus, we have the sun, we have Mars, we have Saturn, we have Jupiter. And so it's almost saying like, maybe this is the time to look at, you know, what is motivating you? What's driving you? What is it that maybe intuitively feels right for you? What is it that allows you to kind of connect a little bit deeper to your identity? What is it that maybe, feels a little bit structured and boundaried, but will be very good for you long term? Where is your sense of expansion? Where is your sense of what drives you? What is it that you value? What is it that would allow you to have a more creative mind in some ways? These are all different things that are kind of tied to each of the planets in astrology. And so I feel like maybe this is a time to not be limited by just what's being presented to you, but maybe look a little bit deeper. Maybe there's some things where you have to kind of be like, all right, what do I value? What do I want? And what do I really desire? So there may be some options, some choices coming up, but just because something is presented to you doesn't always mean you have to take it as it is, right? Sometimes we limit ourselves in a lot of ways because we're like, well, this is the only thing that I feel will work at this time. All right, so with what we need to release, we have the Queen of Pentacles. I think that this is kind of saying like, hey, let's move on from this like Taurian energy, which is funny because we just had Mars move into Taurus, where it is, I think, in a lot of ways in detriment because it's not comfortable there. And so we may feel a little bit more motivated to be slower, more indulgent. Maybe we're trying to be a little bit more focused on like what drives us personally versus like when Mars was in Aries of just like, I need to get out there and do things and just get stuff done. I think with what we need to release is the Queen of Pentacles energy of that, you know, being so comfortable at home, being so worried about what have I been building, what have I been working for, what have I been nurturing. Just because we've invested a lot of time and energy in something doesn't always mean that that's what we have to do for the rest of our lives. And I think for many people, it's very hard to say, I'm going to walk away from something that maybe I have put a lot of my energy and intention into for many, many years, or something that like has become a big part of like my life and what I know and what I have. I think with this being what we need to release is this sense of that we can't rebuild that, or that we can't have that again, or that it's not available to us. You know, Pentacles talk about our physical bodies, our health, our behaviors, our material, our, you know, money, career, finances. The earthly kind of matters. The queens are typically seen as the nurturers of that, the ones that understand their personal power and do it in a way that really benefits the suit. And so I think with what we need to release is maybe this sense of like, I have to do it this way and I've been working so hard this way, so like that's what I need to keep doing. Maybe there's something that feels like you're just not maybe as like, I'm not saying intentional about it, but maybe like you've just been working towards it because that's what you've been working towards, if that makes sense. But you're kind of coming to the realization of like, yeah, this may be providing me some kind of comfort in some way, but it's not really what I want, or it's not really in alignment with, you know, me and what I need. Now, finally, for what we need to contemplate, we have the Hierophant. The Hierophant is all about learning and teaching. I feel like this is like this energy of really moving into an understanding of like, what have we been through? What have we been learning? What have we been engaging with? What have we been focusing on? When I think of the Hierophant, with this being what we need to contemplate, is that maybe there's some things that we need to kind of move back into understanding about. You know, that's one of the big things about me as a person is like, I'm always trying to challenge myself to learn something new, to learn something else, to kind of expand the knowledge that I have. And I think for many people, it's like they kind of forget, like, we also need to kind of be in this like space of like, I'm learning things and I'm challenging myself, and I'm not just going to sit here and be like, I know all and I am all. When I think of the Hierophant, this is going to be this kind of governing kind of agency in a lot of ways, where it's going to feel very much like we're wanting to stick with what is traditional, with what is understood, with what we've always known. And this week, it kind of seems like that's what we're kind of moving up against, is the sense of like, well, it's always been this way, or I've always known it this way, or I've always felt it this way. So I think the Hierophant is kind of saying like, hey, we need to kind of consider that maybe we don't know everything. And we do need to kind of change what it is that we're doing. And we need to kind of move out of this groove of, I've always done it this way, so this is like the way it needs to go. So I think with this being the only major card we have this week too, is that maybe we need to you know, kind of remain a little bit more teachable and look at, you know, what sort of things have we learned, what sort of things we have experienced, and maybe have enough knowledge to kind of put ourselves out there and start learning. If you've been feeling like, hey, I want to like, you know, explore teaching this thing or sharing this thing or, you know, talking about this thing, maybe this is your time to do that, and to not kind of limit yourself thinking, well, I don't know enough, or I don't, you know, understand enough in a lot of different ways. So let's move on to the messages for the oracle cards. And so, like I said, Sunday we have the full moon in Sagittarius. This is a blue moon because it is the second full moon in the month of May. When I think of the full moon in Sagittarius, I think that it's going to highlight a lot of the different aspects of what our desire is like allowing us to kind of do, if that makes sense. I guess like I know I'm like saying it so slowly, but when I think of Sagittarian energy, I think it's very much like this. It's mutable fire, right? So it's something that's saying, I need changes, I need this, I need quickness, I need action, I need momentum. And so that's why they're kind of tied to, you know, the world traveler, the spiritual monk, you know, of just like, I need to learn and I need to do and I need to kind of explore in different ways. And so sometimes it can kind of be seen as this like very interesting energy. And the full moon in Sagittarius, I think that this time it's like a lot of us are maybe going to be looking at, what have I been learning? What have I been doing? And one of the biggest things that many of us, I feel, have been learning this year are boundaries. When I think of just the word boundaries, I think a lot of people misunderstand what it means. I think, oh, it's like this harsh line, this like, that's it, no crossing. And I almost want to look at it as like a border in the sense of like a state line. If anyone does like road trips, like the boundary doesn't need to be so rigid and harsh, and I'm like leaving one port, entering another, have to have everything together. But it's not that. It's not domineering, if that makes sense. Boundaries are typically put in place by, you know, individuals that have come to understand where their limitations are. And I think, if anything, boundaries are a big topic this day and age. A lot of us talk about boundaries, setting boundaries with family members, with, you know, coworkers, friends, this, that, the other, and other people in our lives. And I think some people look at it as like, oh, it's like an electric fence. Like, oh my God, you're going to get shocked if you do anything. And it's like, no, sometimes it can be something as easy as like a state line. I'm just driving through it and, oh, now I'm in another state. Like, the laws have changed. I need to be understanding that not everything is going to look the way that it has been for me and within my understanding. So I think with this full moon, as much as people want to talk about like manifesting this, that, the other, I think this is more of like a full moon where we're going to really want to reconsider like our limitations and where we have been allowing things that really just don't make sense for what sort of life we want, the sort of things that we're trying to get to and do. I think that maybe this is going to be a good time for us to like really reconsider what it is that we've been carrying that maybe doesn't make sense. We need to maybe kind of sit with ourselves and be like, all right, what am I going to limit? What am I going to, you know, no longer allow because it's not making me happy, or it's not really in alignment with what I want and what I need. And finally, we have the mindset card, which is all about creating reality, working with your subconscious, befriending your mind. So this is going to be a great time. And we are in Gemini season, right? So this is a good time to kind of reconsider our, you know, what we're thinking, what we're carrying. This may be a good time to just kind of look at where in our lives we have been limiting ourselves in some way that maybe is not really making sense for what we're trying to do. I know for me, that's been the biggest thing I've been trying to focus on this month, is just like that mindset of being very aware of like, okay, What do I want? How am I thinking about it? What sort of ideologies and thought processes have I been carrying that maybe don't make sense for, what I'm trying to do with my life. And I feel like this is also very Sagittarian coded at this time, and also Gemini coded, right? It's the mind, it's the mindset. It's looking at, what are we carrying? Why are we carrying it? What are we talking about? Uranus, has also moved into Gemini. And so we have this like electrification of like what we think and how we think. And there may be a lot of shifts and changes in the dynamics between, community and, our society and policies and things of this nature. A lot of these things are going to be changing very quickly. And a lot of us may be kind of coming to this realization of like, oh, you know what? I really need to kind of change why I'm thinking about these things. Pluto has been in Aquarius and also retrograde. And so we have this kind of sense of like, all right, we're getting a chance to kind of rethink what needs to transform, what needs to change, what needs to shift. So I think with the mindset card, it may be an opportunity for us to kind of look at, how are we speaking to ourselves? Why are we speaking to ourselves in this manner? Maybe it's a time to kind of look at what are we subconsciously carrying that maybe isn't really in alignment with the sort of things that we're trying to do with our lives. So I want to say thank you so much for joining me this week. I really hope that this reading finds you well. I want to say thank you for being here. I hope you have a fabulous week. Please take care, stay safe, and as always, make good choices. Bye.